Hey folks, welcome back to another Top 10 list with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today, we are continuing my Top 10 Game Mechanisms series with my Top 10 Simultaneous Action Selection Games. Now, Simultaneous Action Selection is when you have either a hand of cards or some other kind of component in the game with which you're going to choose an action at the same time as everybody else in the game. And sometimes that can mean a good thing. If two people choose the same thing, well, then it might be bad for you. If you're the only person that chooses to do this, well, then you get a bonus. There's a lot of different nuances that kind of hover around this whole idea of simultaneous action selection. I will say this, though. The deeper I get into my game mechanisms list, the harder it is for me to make a top 10 list for that mechanism, because sometimes while a game employs a mechanism, it's not usually the core mechanism of the game. Sometimes. Up until now, I've done pretty good at picking games and having a lot of games to pick from. But this one is where it's starting to get a little bit rough, and it's starting to get a little bit more difficult to get 10 games that I would feel decent putting it on a top 10 list. So with that having been said, just take that as kind of a caveat. That simultaneous action selection usually isn't a core mechanism of the game, at least from my experience and from the research that I did for this list. More often than not, it is something that is coupled with something else or paired with something greater than it, and it's just kind of part of that larger mechanism. So I do apologize for that. I think I've done a good job, and I think this is a solid list for simultaneous action selection games. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to it. All right, so my number 10 is a game that I have just played recently. I did play it a good number of times in order to review it recently, but this is probably one of the easiest lists for it to make my top 10 games. And sliding in the number 10 position is Fantasy Baseball by CSE Games. Now, the reason this one makes the list is because the simultaneous action selection part of the game is really the crux of the entire game. There's other things going on. There's a drafting, there are a lot of other things going on, but there's some memory aspects of the game. But the simultaneous selection is really where all of the chips kind of hit the table, because each card has a stat on it, and each member of your team has different stats, just like everybody else's does. And you're going to be using those players at different positions throughout the course of the regular season to try to win as many games as possible. And so you're having to remember what other people have in their decks, or rather their hands, which comprise their team. And you want to, you find yourself double guessing yourself and triple guessing sometimes. Do I want to go for this one because I know I can get this one over here, but I might be able to get that and this? It's really cool because you have to choose all four positions at the same time as everybody else, and then you reveal at the same time as well. So the simultaneous action selection in Fantasy Baseball is really a core mechanism, and some of these aren't, but this one is. Now, my number 9 is a game that just kind of took me by surprise. It was a little small game called Goths Save the Queen, and it has, first of all, a really interesting theme where two groups of Goths are battling over saving their queen. Their queen has been, I think if I remember correctly, their queen has been given to provide a merger between the clans, but something has gone wrong, and one faction is trying to get her back, and the other teams are trying to protect her, and it's kind of a convoluted thing, but I was like, that's pretty interesting. Well, the simultaneous action selection in this game is really interesting because two people are going to be on the same team, and the other two people are going to be on the same team, and they're each going to be choosing a card from their hand at the same time, but they can't talk to each other about what card they're going to choose. They have to simply go on what they need to do and kind of a battle plan that is necessary, and then they reveal. If it works out, then everything's fine, but if they're opposite, then they have to kind of start over again. It's a really neat twist on simultaneous action selection, where the two team members that are trying to work together have to do that without talking to one another and verbally setting up a game plan. I really did enjoy this game. It came out of nowhere, but I really did enjoy it. That's Goths Save the Queen, my number 9. Now, speaking about my number 9 is my number 8, and that is because the name of the game is number 9. And this is where you're trying to build up as many levels, and the level that this number falls upon will be, for example, if a number 8 is on level 2, then it's going to get 16 points. But if the level 8 is on the 8th, then it's going to get, on level 3, then it's going to get 24 points, and so forth and so on. So you're trying to place these numbers on this grid where there's no overhang. So that's why I liked that. And the simultaneous action selection comes where one person flips over a card, and that's what everybody has to do. So it's kind of a team or a corporate action selection that's actually chosen for you. But now everybody has to, at the same time, you have a certain amount of time where you can place that number onto the stack, or pile rather, whatever it might look like to you, of numbers, and hopefully you can build up and use your higher numbers for the higher levels and score more points. It was an interesting concept, and it really surprised me because usually number games aren't for me, but this is a spatial number game, and that's what I really liked about it. So my number 8 is number 9. Now my number 7 is a game that was very much like Rattle, Battle, Grab the Loot, put out by, I believe, Portal Games a while back, but this one was called Pirates of the Seven Seas, and it's put out by IDW, and it basically, one of the mechanisms at least, is basically just like Rattle, Battle, Grab the Loot, where you're rolling a bunch of dice into the top of the box. Where it worked for Pirates of the Seven Seas, it just didn't work for me for Rattle, Battle, Grab the Loot. I don't understand why, but it just did. I think it has something to do with the fact that the top of the box in Pirates of the Seven Seas is just not as big, not as thick, and so it was easier to see the dice and much easier, less convoluted to figure out which one of those dice defeated the other ones and everything like that. But we're talking about the action, the simultaneous action selection of this game, and that's where the most of the tension comes into effect. Because if you choose the same action as somebody else, then there is a lesser value of things that you can do in that action. But if you're the only one to choose that action, you actually get a bonus added onto it. The whole point of the game is to get the most points, of course, but you are simultaneously each round choosing what action you're going to carry out, which character's abilities you're going to use, and you're trying to double guess, second guess your opponents to make them think that you're going to do this, but in reality you're really wanting to do this, so that possibly you can be the only person to get that character out there and then get that bonus. I really enjoyed the game a lot. It really kind of flew under the radar, but if you have the chance, check out Pirates of the Seven Seas. I think you'll like it. That's my number 7, Pirates of the Seven Seas. Now my number 6 is a game from Artipia Games called Among the Stars. And the simultaneous action selection in this one is actually coupled with a card drafting mechanism. So card drafting I really enjoy. We've already had that list because it was higher on my game mechanisms list. So when it coupled card drafting with simultaneous action selection, I really thought that was a very cool pairing, and it worked together well. Generally speaking, what you're going to do is you're going to get a hand of 6 cards at the beginning of each round, and you're trying to build this mega space station, and you're going to have these hand of 6 cards, and you're going to choose one of them and place it face down. Once everybody's done that, we turn it over and we place it somewhere in our space station. Then we take our hand of 5 cards that are left and we pass it in one direction or the other, depending on what round we're in. And then you have a hand of 5 cards. You choose one of those, boom, place it face down. So again, it's a amalgamation, so to speak, of those two mechanisms smashed together. I thought it was really, really cool, and that's why it made my list. I enjoy the theme as well, although that's kind of, I did play the, what is it, Fields of Green, I think, where it's a farming version of it. Much better as a space station version, I think, at least for me. But that is my number 6 among the stars. Now, my number 5 is a game put out by Wolf Designer, and that is a game called Guards of Atlantis. Now, I spoke a lot about this at Essen when it was introduced to me last year. I really enjoyed it a lot. I've reviewed the game, so you can go back and check that out as well. But it is a MOBA style game where each team is going to be comprised of 2, sometimes 3 people, and you're each going to have heroes that you're going to be controlling during the course of the game, and each hero has his own deck of action cards. Well, during the course of each turn, each hero is going to be able to play one of their cards face down, and of course simultaneously. So you have this programmed action, so to speak, that you're going to be going through, and you only have a certain number of cards, and you have a certain number of rounds, and once you've played a card, you don't get it back up until the end of the round. So it's really interesting. The tactical decision almost feels strategic, but as you get through those different turns, it really becomes tactical because you know what your opponents have already played, and you can make maybe a little bit of a better decision in subsequent turns than those first couple of ones. But it's I really enjoy the game, had a lot of fun playing it, so it's my number 5 from Wolf Designer, Guards of Atlantis. But my number 4 is a game called Raptor. This is a 2-player game where each player takes on the role of either a team of dinosaurs, well, rather, a team of scientists that are hunting a pack of dinosaurs, and with a mama raptor and then a bunch of baby raptors. Now, the scientists are not evil. They're just trying to perform some research to learn more about the raptors and their societal makeup and whatever. The raptors, on the other hand, don't understand this, of course, and they are simply wanting to survive. The mama raptor is trying to get her baby raptors to safety. Well, during the course of all of that, the 2 players have a hand of cards that they're going to choose that have a number on them. And you choose that action. If you have the higher number, then you get to do the action of the card. But if you place the lower number, you get a number of actions to carry out on the board that is equal to the difference between your number and your opponent's number, whatever it may be. So if my opponent played a 9 and I played a 3, then I would get 6 actions on the board. And that's the cool part about this simultaneous action selection, because you are really choosing. Sometimes you want to be the lower number, but you don't have very low numbers in your hand. So you got to play something hoping to get a number of actions on the board. Sometimes you definitely want to do the action that the card allows you to do. And so you want to try to play as high as possible. But maybe your opponent wants to do the same thing, which is where the tension comes into this game. I really enjoy the game. It has a great thematic inclusion to the different cards and what they allow you to do, and it's just a really good game. If you haven't been able to try Raptor, you really, really, really need to. And that's my number 4, Raptor. Now, my number 3 is a game that I have played for a very long time, and a lot of people shy away from this game because of the theme and what you're actually doing in the game. And that is Cash and Guns. I'm specifically talking about the 2nd edition. Now, the simultaneous action selection in this simply is quite, boom, pointing a foam gun at somebody. Because you are trying to either bluff them or you're trying to take them out because they're winning the game or they're scoring more points than you are, or whatever it might be. But generally speaking, your action selection is, do I shoot this person or do I bluff them? But everybody has to choose who they're pointing their gun at the same time. And that is an iconic time within the game when you can walk into some place and just see a bunch of people pointing guns at each other, but you realize, oh, they're not real guns. They're playing a game. It's a board game. Nobody's going to get hurt. That sticks in your mind for one reason or another. But generally speaking, the tension, the fun that it is to try to just bluff people. You're just talking smack. I'm going to do this, or I'm not, don't shoot me, you know, this kind of stuff. It's just an interesting, fun, simultaneous action selection game. Really enjoy it a lot. That's my number 3. Cash and Guns 2nd edition. Now my number 2 has been on another list, but simultaneous action is one of the first things that really brought me to this game, so I had to include it on this one as well. My number 2 is Mission Red Planet. The cards that you have in your hand, everybody has the same cards, everybody has the same abilities every single turn. Except for after you play a card, it's done until you play your recruiter card and you can pull all the cards back up into your hand. So there is a little bit of knowledge that can be had throughout the course of the game as people play down their different cards. But that's what really drew me in. It kind of one-upped Citadels for me. Citadels used to be one of my favorite games to play, and then Mission Red Planet came along and kind of replaced it because it had a very same feel, at least in my opinion. I'm hitting that microphone. Sorry. At least in my opinion, where you're choosing to play a certain role within the course of the round. And I really do enjoy Mission Red Planet for a lot of different things. I like the area control. I like the simultaneous action selection. So that's why it made those 2 lists for me. So with all that being said, my number 2, Mission Red Planet, go check it out. And so finally, my number 1 simultaneous action selection game is Jamaica, the pirate racing game where you're control of a ship racing around the island of Jamaica. So one player basically rolls the dice, 2 of them, and he chooses whichever die he wants to do in the morning and then whichever one he wants to go in the evening. And then after he has chosen which value will go with the morning and the evening, everybody at the same time has to choose what they're going to do. And then in player order, we reveal and you carry out your actions. This can lead to a lot of different circumstances. You could be going for that treasure, but you don't think anybody else can get there. But hey, lo and behold, one person moved and on purpose could not pay for this and could not pay for that. And now they slide backwards into that position. And you're like, no! But then you go up there and you have to battle them because you landed on the same spot that you did, but you didn't want to battle. You weren't prepared for it. There's just so many different cool situations that can happen from the simultaneous action selection of this game. I really have enjoyed it so much over the course, and I don't see it dying out anytime soon. Every time I play this game, I remember just how much I enjoy it. So that is my number 1 simultaneous action selection game, Jamaica. So that is that for simultaneous action selection. I know that I've probably missed something, at least according to your opinion. You think that I have left something out in errancy, but that's not the case. I simply chose these because these are ones that I truly enjoy. If I didn't choose yours, it could be for a number of different reasons, but not the least of which is either I just haven't played it yet, or I didn't like it as much as you did. So that's that. But as always, let me know in the comments what you think about my list, and let me know what you may have included or may not have included. At any rate, thanks so much for watching. I do appreciate it. We'll see you guys on the flip side.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.